Hi, my name is Rosie Hernandez, and today I want to talk about genetic testing and PTEN. I want you guys to imagine living life for 32 years and then finding out you've been diagnosed with a gene that puts you at higher risk for life-threatening disease such as cancer. This is a reality for most thanks to advanced genetic testing. Some main points of our discussion today will include genetic testing, genetic counseling, and the benefits, treatment plans, and reducing one's risk of developing the diseases. Let's start out with genetic counseling. Genetic counseling gives you information about genetics and how it may affect you and your family. When you are referred to a genetic counselor, it may be because you have been diagnosed with cancer, you have a high risk of cancer in your family. It could be that you are planning a pregnancy and maybe you do not want to pass the genetics on to your unborn child. Many other reasons could be because your child developed something that may need a genetic testing. I could give you an example. My daughter was having some health issues that required genetic testing to find out if she needed further treatment, and it was found that she had PTEN. And then from there they wanted me to get tested, where I found out that I was the one that had PTEN, and then my son ended up getting tested to know that he had PTEN. If the genetic counselor then finds that you do qualify for genetic testing, they will then refer you for genetic testing. From there, genetic testing does look at our DNA to see if there's any changes that explain some of the patient's features. A little fun fact that I learned, we have about 20,000 genes which are in every cell of our body, and each of them serve different functions. I thought that was kind of cool. There are many genetic testing that is performed. This includes but is not limited to blood, saliva, cheek swabs, and a skin biopsy. I do say not limited to. When my daughter went into surgery, they actually had to swipe some of her DNA, which they were able to take from her bone. So that was kind of cool. That was actually fairly unique, and that's how they found out that she had PTEN. They were able to swipe it off the bone when she broke her femur. So that is another way that they could test for DNA. When these labs are performed, the techs look for different changes called variants. This then explains a patient's symptoms. There are many different types of genetic testing that I thought was kind of unique. The first test is called single gene testing. This test is used if there is a high suspicion that one gene is causing your symptoms. I have learned that that is one of the tests that they use to test for PTEN hamartoma syndrome. And I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that would have been one of the tests that they tested on my daughter, because she had something called AVM, arteriovenous malformation. The second test is called targeted gene panel testing. This test looks for different genes that is known to cause certain diseases, such as, and excuse me for saying this, ectodermal dysplasia. That is not quite sure what exactly that causes. It's something to do with the skin, I assume, because anything dermal is skin related. And then the third test is called EXOME sequencing. I'm sorry, I should have pronounced this before. I'm sorry. This test looks at all Zyons, or parts of the genes that code proteins. I never was good in biology. This is one of the tests is called, is used for testing and identifying the variant PTEN. So that is another testing I've learned for PTEN. And lastly, the fourth test is called, genome testing or sequencing. This test looks at all your genetic information to find the explanation of your symptoms. That last one is the test that they used in a whole to test for the whole panel of variants that they have studied that cause cancer or the higher risk of cancer, the BRCA gene and the other genes as well. So I've also learned that there are many benefits of knowing that you have a positive genetic test if that were to happen. Now that you are made aware of a positive gene, you have to prepare for a visit to the cancer predisposition clinic for a medical management to reduce your risk of developing certain diseases. If a positive result has been identified, the lab will also test any of your family members for free of charge. Most labs will do that. I know when I was tested, they did offer to test any of my family members for free, which I believe there's a limit up to 90 days for most labs. Some of them I think are up to 30 days. It all varies from state to state. The positive test can seem scary, but you sometimes take advantage of it because it could also save your life. Another benefit of testing is now provides you with answers about why conditions happen and how, as well as the chances of your children being affected. For an example, in my situation, my daughter was tested for PTEN. Then I was tested. The counselor then told me that if I tested positive, there would be a 50-50 chance that my son would be PTEN positive as well, and he was. It's unfortunate, but I think of it this way: it saved all of our lives. I'm very glad about this whole testing. And on that, a positive result could also help provide your family with helpful information as well as how to get them tested. Again, in this situation, I was able to track down my parents being that they're not alive. I was able to track down information of which of my relatives I got them from, and I've determined that it came from my dad's side. I have also, with the positive result, know that they will refer you to the cancer predisposition clinic. The doctors will help you get set up with yearly screenings and talk about ways to prevent this disease. They may also talk about referring you to a dietitian because some foods we eat have many ways of feeding into certain cancers. Cancer feeds off of sugar. So after today and our discussion, I surely hope that you have a better understanding of genetic counseling and genetic testing. After our discussion on genetic counseling, testing, and the benefits of treatment after a positive test, I hope that you have learned something. I think this whole thing is very unique. I think we've come a long way in advancing in the medical field. Something else that I've learned, that genetic testing, it did originate in the 1950s, and that shows that we've come a long way. We're now almost in 2025. We've come so far advanced in testing and treatments and care. In the end, I hope you have gained some knowledge and a better understanding of genetic counseling and testing. We always say knowledge is power. I say it's what you do with the knowledge that is the true testament of power. I thank you for listening, and I hope you guys have learned something. I appreciate it.